Almost ready.
Sure.
Okay.
Take your time.
Okay, we're good.
Perfect.
Okay, so it's October 1st, a new day, a new month, and always new and exciting projects to look at. So I think we're ready to go. Thank you all for being willing to be committee members and give your good thinking and do your homework and hopefully get everything in on time. I think all of you have, so excellent. Way to go. I think everybody knows everybody now, so we will not go around to have introductions, but we'll, and you know the staff as well. So again, I thank you for your service. And Brittany, if you will read us the public statement about our public. And by the way, I've talked to people that have used that. So thank you very much for the capability and our transparency. It's very helpful.
Fantastic. Well, my name is Brittany. I'm going to read a short public statement just so everybody can be informed. Those of you who are watching, this is a public meeting and it is being recorded. To quickly meet community needs, applications for funding will be considered on a rolling basis until the fund is exhausted. The organization whose applications are being reviewed today may be asked to participate in the meeting by providing comments when asked a question by the Pinellas Cares Nonprofit Partnership Grant Fund Committee. If attending the Zoom meeting by computer or other smart device, you will be unmuted to respond back to the given question from the Grants Committee in the Zoom app. You will have 3 minutes to respond to each question. If you are attending the Zoom meeting by phone only, you will be unmuted when it is your turn, and you will need to press *6 on your phone to unmute yourself. If you're representing an organization whose application will be reviewed today, please enter your name and the organization's name in the chat function of Zoom so that we can recognize you when it comes time for you to answer questions. At the conclusion of your comments, you will be muted again. Please note that all committee members and staff participating in this meeting have signed conflict of interest forms. And for those of you who are viewing this via YouTube or recording and you'd like to provide feedback on the grant process, you can submit your comments to caresfeedback@pinellascf.org and we'll respond to your comments as soon as possible. This feedback will not be answered live. That's all from me. Sally, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Brittany. Excellent. And excuse me, you may recall that we talked about how we would go through the grants, but we haven't had that huge number at any one time, just for this time. So we'll just go through them at random, whatever way they've been established by the review that we've done. So I think we're ready to walk right into that.
We do want to do a status update on the fund.
Oh,
Perfect.
please.
Thank you, David.
Yep.
Yes.
So I will jump in here. Thank you again, committee members, for joining us today. So where we are, we have approved, this is not how much has been distributed again, but to date, we have approved $11,487,819.57. We have $18,212,180.43 remaining. So that kind of gives you an idea of where we are. That does not include, these numbers do not include the proposals that are before us today. On the right-hand chart, on the right-hand side, there's a pie chart that helps you dig in a little deeper into where it is across our 3 priority areas where we have made our funding investments. Next slide, please. So an update on past requests. Week 1, we had 4 applications that we approved. Week 2, 5 applications. Week 3, 9 applications. Week 4, 5 applications. And week 4, 5 applications, and week 5, 4 applications. And you can see the dollar amounts there, and that's how we round out at our final number. Next slide, please. So before us today, we have 4 applications and the total amount of $150,248.61. And Sally, I'll turn it back over to you to begin our conversation about the first one. Maybe I'll just make a cursory remark.
Yes,
CASA, that you all, we talked about their application before. The organization has gone back, has done some tweaking to the work that they're going to be doing, specifically as it relates to additional justification for the air conditioning unit along with some other things. And so that application is now back before us, and they have provided all the necessary documentation that we have requested.
Okay, are there questions of the committee? So the reimbursement is $11,540, which was for the air conditioning, right?
Correct. The
And-
total amount they've requested is $51,781.
Okay.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
Okay, Alethea, please.
Yes, in the performance measures, there was an increase in the number served. And so I raised that question, why, and also some questions in relationship to whether they're duplicate or different people.
David, could we please
Is there-
unmute the line for a member of the CASA team to respond back to
Yes.
that question?
Hello, this is Jill Flansburgh with CASA, and thank you all for your work on this committee for the betterment of our community. The increase in the number served reflects the persons who are being served in our non-residential services. And because this project is mainly benefiting those services, I wanted to make sure and look at those numbers. Yes, there may be some duplication, as we sometimes have survivors come back for more than one service or more than one support group.
Thank you.
Is that cause for concern, Alethea, or is it just?
No, I just wondered because in the first submittal, it had 40 and then it, jumped to 80. So that's why I asked the question.
Understood. Okay. Any other questions?
And I also noticed there was a change in your performance measures. Dr. Barber, did they confer with you?
Yeah, I would like to speak to that. And that was at my encouragement. The first submission of a performance measure was related to knowledge gain. They were going to measure knowledge gain of the women about domestic violence as a phenomenon and perhaps what they needed to know to protect themselves, which in my opinion was not a strong enough outcome. So what I really pushed them on was to say that every woman who comes to their program should leave with a professionally informed safety plan, so that if they are abused again, they know where to go for help, they know what to do for themselves and their children. And that was not a stretch, because I know that CASA traditionally has had women leave with a safety plan. So it was just a gentle reminder that I think you have something that you can use as a stronger outcome.
Okay. Jill, you're okay with that? Everybody's fine with that at CASA?
Absolutely. That's something that we do with everybody, even persons who don't necessarily identify themselves to us, who are just calling in on our crisis hotline. We do a safety planning with everybody. And then persons who we serve more than once, we check with them to make sure that that safety plan is updated based on any changes in their life circumstances.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, concerns, thoughts, motion?
I don't have any questions, but I do still have a concern about the eligibility of the air conditioners. It's still, I'm still not comfortable with it being under CARES Act funding as an eligible purchase. So just wanted to put it out there that I still am uncomfortable with that.
Can I pipe up?
Carrie?
I had reservations last review with this as well. However, I think that when they put the new response in, it really turned the corner for me from the perspective of, I don't think they would have made these changes even now had COVID not happened. And I think that's where the, if you look at it, is this a COVID related purchase or not? They wouldn't have made it now. They would have pushed it off until some point that they could have fundraised for it, et cetera, or had it fit better in the budget. But they had to do it because they needed to provide services in a manner that was above and beyond what they had expected or had done because of COVID. So that's why I changed my mind on that. And I just wanted to share that perspective. And I have to say, I thought it was very helpful that they provided some of the professional, the refereed literature with research showing that it was needed. Anyway, that was just my thought.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. Others? Joe Mar?
Yeah, I think to Lisa's point, it begs the question, when was the organization planning on replacing the HVAC? Because if it was rusted, I mean, that's already wear and tear that's been there for a while. The organization should have planned for it beforehand. And so, and I understand if COVID happened, then, things need to change. But to Lisa's point, I'm still kind of seeing, when was it planned to replace the HVAC? If it was planned to be replaced this year, for example, and COVID happened and emergency needed to rise, needed things to happen, then I can understand it needed to be replaced. But if there was still some leeway, I'm still not feeling it.
Jill, would you like to speak to that?
Absolutely, thank you. CASA had planned for and secured funding for replacement of 2 of the outreach air conditioners at the outreach location last year. The remaining 2, we have 4 on our roof. The remaining 2 were reported to be in working order during service checks that we had done. And that's why they weren't capitalized or prioritized as a capital expense. The unit in question was regularly serviced, in part because we've had such a desperately hot summer, and had been reported to be in fine working condition. It just so happened that when it finally went, the rust is what caused the roof to leak. It was not apparent to us earlier on pre-COVID.
Olivia?
Yes, Madam Chair. As you recall, this was very hard for me the last meeting. And this go around, I even went back and looked at the governor's executive order and the date, and the Pinellas County's executive order and the dates. And I think what swayed me was the additional information. As I understand it, Jill, the location where these HVAC units are located, well, let me go back. As I understand it now, women are reluctant to go into the residential shelter, which I perfectly understand. And so now most of your work is being done in this administrative building, which you got more people, and so you need to keep it cooler, et cetera, which may have put more stress on the unit. So I'm supporting this because the clients are now have sort of been displaced because of COVID from the residential into more of an outreach setting.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely, absolutely. We're typically used to serving a great number at our shelter, but because of the virus, persons are reluctant to come into communal living because they're afraid they're going to catch it from each other.
Okay, any other questions?
Sally, this is Barbara. I have a procedural question with regard to a vote by the committee. Is it based on majority? If a majority supports, it's approved. Is there a certain percentage that has to have approval in order for it to move forward?
Well, we actually didn't discuss that, but it's my view that it would be 51% of the committee members that are present.
All right.
I have another procedural question, though, and that is, do you want to vote on the air conditioning issue separately, the HVAC system separately. That's what I thought you were going to ask about.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea.
Duggan, Cherie, do you have any counsel on that?
You know, as I've looked at this more and more, and with the justification I believe that they've given, I felt far more comfortable with it this time around. Really came around to it the same way that that several of the committee members did, both Alithia and Carrie, and felt better about it. I'm actually looking up my CARES Act guidance right now around capital expenditures, so that I can make sure. The other thing that we will do, if you approve this, we'll run it additionally through our fiscal people about this. But we did have a discussion with the county yesterday and then a week ago, specific about capital and construction. And if it's deemed to be necessary to help deal with the public health epidemic, then capital could be allowed. We have a mental health agency that wants to do significant capital expansion to get them back to like baseline of the number of patients that they can treat in facility. And our review with the county on that particular one is that would be allowed, and it's a substantial build out, but it will allow for the social distancing. I applied a little bit of that logic to this on the basis that CASA had explained they brought their workers back from other places around the community because they could no longer go to them. And they also had the issue where people were not entering shelter. So the place for them to deliver the service was at this facility, which has already had 2 air conditioners replaced, had one go out of service, and has another one that needs to be handled sooner rather than later. So I felt better about it the way it was justified this time around. And now I'm looking for my CARES Act guidance on capital expenditures.
Okay. Thank you, Duggan. Cherie, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I don't. I think that, I've worked with CASA, have a deeper level understanding around why it is that they made this request. And so I think the second budget narrative and justification really speaks as to why this is necessary. Jill just also shared back very transparently, and thank you, CASA, for doing that, the challenges that they're currently experiencing in their shelter to compensate that with the increased need at their outpatient centers. And so that is the reason why this change is necessary now to upgrade to the AC unit. And if it had not been for COVID, then this, would not be necessary in this moment in time.
Okay.
I do have one more question then. So,
sure.
What's in question is the one HVAC that has already been replaced because it was rusted and causing the roof to leak. That was an emergency situation. But then the one that they have that's not for reimbursement, but for consideration as well, when the most recent service was done on that one, is it considered to be, does it still have life left, or is it about to fail as the one that has already been replaced?
Jill?
Yeah, this, the one that's left, the older one that's left is working fine, but it is just as old as the other one. So we're a little hesitant to keep it up there any longer than we need to, just because of what happened with the other one that needed to be replaced.
Okay, are you ready to take action? And, I'm fine with making it one motion, but if you care to divide it up, that's up to the committee. I'll lead you wherever you want to go. Alithia, you look like you were about to make a motion.
Yes, Madam Chair. I'll move to that we fund the CASA request of $51,781.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, Carrie and Aaron were right in there. Okay. Is there further discussion? I'm sorry. Is this Carlos, I'm sorry, I'm hearing
I
somebody's
think
voice.
Minister Seniors is having some tech issues with his microphone and it's coming
Oh.
through distorted.
Yeah. Did anybody hear what it was? Because I didn't hear anything except kind of garbled.
Unfortunately, I did not either.
Put something in the chat, Carlos.
Yeah, I would recommend putting in the chat. We can give him like a little bit. Oh, a second. He was offering a second.
Okay, good. If there's no further discussion, please raise your hand to support the motion. And opposition? Lisa is the only one that I see. Is that correct? Okay, thank you. And Lisa, I appreciate you bringing up your concerns. I mean, I never think that there's anything negative about questioning things and challenging issues, and you all have done that very well on this one. Okay, so we can move on to the next one. Thank you.
Rest assured, we'll be
Chair.
checking a couple other things to make sure we're all in the clear.
Sure,
Okay.
right. We may be getting a report back from you is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay, the next one looks like feeding the homeless / hungry, and it's a food request for $5,782. Okay, comments? You may want to look at the reviewers' comments.
Sally, this is Barbara. While we're looking at comments, and I hope I'm not out of place, but I would like to really encourage reviewers to at least make a comment or some comments. Sometimes it's very difficult to put their rating in context with no further information around it. And if it happens that for some reason a reviewer cannot be present at a meeting, the comments are all we have to really understand what their perspective is. So that's just a request that I would like to make.
Yeah, I was going to mention that too. And I find sometimes I struggle a little bit, they look like a good organization and so on. And I struggle a little bit to find comments that are of value, but I agree with you. If someone isn't going to be here or whether they are here, I'm glad to read what other people have said.
Right,
And-
like for example, here, you have fairly good ratings, and then the two lowest ratings, the 72 and 70, have no comment. So those may be very valid issues, but I don't know what they are.
Don't know, right. Okay, so I think
I'll start
go
with
ahead.
my questions.
Go ahead, Alexia.
Yes. Okay. Would you clarify exactly when the meals are delivered? In one place it said Wednesday and Saturday, and then another it said Wednesday and Sunday. And are the meals delivered at a fixed site?
Could the person from New Faith Free Methodist Church use the raise hand feature in the lower toolbar so I know who to call on? There was no announcements from the chat.
Well, I
Do we
think
know?
Miss Gwendolyn, Glenn is actually the representative, and she let me and Sheree know that she would not be able to be here, but I don't know if maybe she had like a counterpart jump on in her place. So if, of course, as David said, if there is somebody here, just let us know.
There is someone that dialed in with
Okay.
a 727. I can unmute them and we can see. So the person whose phone number ends in 439, could you say whether or not you're from New Faith Free Methodist Church? And you might have to press *6 to unmute.
No luck. We haven't heard from anyone. yet?
No, and they haven't unmuted. So
We might not have a representative from the organization. As Brittany mentioned earlier, they did respond back. I have had some conversation with them regarding their budget narrative, and so they have changed and some transitions and things. I do see there's a question about their reimbursement mileage and things like that. So those things have been tweaked. Alithia, I'm happy to get clarification for you and the rest of the team regarding exactly when the meals are going to be served. So staff can definitely work on that to ensure that we follow up with you all about that.
Yeah, I'm the need clarification or meals delivered at a, those are my questions.
Okay. Any
Most of my questions were related to like the budget narrative. So I don't know if we had seen the most recent one or not, but just even in the equipment line item, the items didn't add up. So I wasn't 100% sure what it was that if something was pulled out, if they were trying to get funded. I know that the freezer alone was either $900 or $1,700, and the equipment budget was $1,256. And there were some other items in there as well. So it wasn't very clear on what they were asking for. So just wanted to throw that out there as what we reviewed. I'm not sure.
So those items have been cleaned up in their most recent budget narrative. They have also provided justification, I would say greater justification, as for why it is that those items are being required. Some of them are upgrades according to the fire department that they're having and requesting us to support because of the larger numbers, the increased numbers they're actually preparing meals for. So yes, the questions about the freezer and that sort of thing have been cleaned up along with bids to go along with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So so it was still, I mean, I agree with Lisa. I was unclear.
We do have Gwendolyn now. She's
okay.
joined.
Okay.
So
Wonderful.
could Gwendolyn, I'm going to unmute you. You'll be allowed to talk. If someone could restate the questions, because I do think she just joined.
Alithia, could you please restate your question regarding clarification?
Yes. Could you please tell me exactly when the meals are delivered? In one section of the application, it mentioned Wednesday and Saturday, and then another was Wednesday and Sunday. So is it Wednesday and Saturday or Wednesday and Sunday?
Gwen, you might need to hit *6 to unmute yourself.
She's on a computer.
Oh, okay. You might need to use the unmute button at the bottom of Zoom. It's a little microphone. And it's likely in red if you're utilizing mute, if you're currently on mute, I should say.
I'm chatting her as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, David.
In the meantime, Sherry, just for clarity and following up on, I think it was Lisa's question, it is in fact their desire is to purchase Home Depot 1696, and then it said parentheses alternative 965. Well, obviously, we don't know exactly what that is. So why?
Sure.
About,
so in their first budget narrative, they were trying to help us understand the least cost option. And so that's why you see both numbers appearing there.
Okay.
And my question too is, even with that lower number though, everything did not add up. So I don't know if they were asking for more money, or if the quotes that they had on the items listed may have come in lower.
So I am happy to send out the updated budget narrative with all of the correct information. Because all the numbers do add up and connect now.
Okay. I just wanted to, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to make sure that ultimately it wasn't more than what we had anticipated, that it just aligns with what was asked of.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that.
Sure thing.
Can I get a clarification from others that have read this? When I was reading through, I was really confused about how the Boy Scouts were going to be used. They said they had volunteers that were doing things from their home, but they can't do that anymore. So now they need to use the church's resources. And then the Boy Scouts were doing something. I really didn't get a feel for how this was all put together. And that was my, mine's the next to lowest score. But that's why I scored it low, but it was such a long question. I didn't put it in the chat box. Did anybody else have a confusion about what they were actually doing?
Yeah, so Carrie, I too, with this application, I wasn't really gaining a good sense of structure from this organization and how they were going to carry out their services. And so I too am skeptical about funding this application.
I also had questions about the relationship of the Boy Scout troop to the church. Are they members of the church, or is this a Boy Scout group that meets at the church, or just some more clarification about that?
So I have given Gwendolyn a dial-in number. Probably a little overwhelmed with the questions and trying to get on because I see her unmuting and muting. So hopefully she dials in. We can give her maybe 30 seconds. And if a dial-in numbers appear, I'll unmute right away. Gwendolyn, if you haven't seen my chats in the chat box to you with a dial-in number, you can check that.
Madam Chair, can we go on to the next one and then come back?
That would be fine with me.
Okay, and I'll keep an eye on if
Okay.
she comes on through phone.
Circle back to us. Okay. Moving on to the next one. Oh, Brookwood, okay.
And we do have the executive director from Brookwood.
Okay. Okay. All right, members, questions?
Ellie, this is Barbara. I just wanted to make a note that I did send this evaluation component back for some additional work. This is another application where I think the definition of a performance or progress was not rigorous enough. The way it was originally worded was after the services were provided in the instrument that they were using was that there would just be a difference in a positive direction without specification of any amount in terms of what they were expecting to see in terms of a reduction. So I sent them back and asked them to tighten up the language on that, and I hope that's reflected in the version that you all saw.
I'm looking back at the application myself. Just to look.
Because sometimes the changes get in and sometimes they don't. So
I actually had a lot of questions regarding this application. I wasn't entirely sure of what service they were providing to measure based on like the budget. They were asking for laptops for use for the online schooling. Supplies were all PPE and mattress covers. There was the capital item of the intercom system. I'd like to hear some more explanation on the need for that based on COVID. And then the purchase services were all cleaning services. So I wasn't even clear on what it was that we were trying to measure, what outcome would come of the cleaning, the schooling, and the intercom.
You're not seeing the connectivity between the cleaning supplies and so on and the outcome that we have asked for. Is that right, Lisa?
Yes, because it's my understanding that it's a behavioral health outcome, correct? And then, okay.
So Lisa, I'm going to allow the grantee to address you specifically.
Okay.
But this is a bit of an issue for many of the behavioral health programs where they're asking for supplies or what I would say a more infrastructure support or even staffing development. There is a logic in this, and it has to be stated because sometimes it's not readily apparent, is that if you are in a setting, if you are working with staff whose traditional way of practicing has been derailed, so to speak, by COVID, it means that you're not able to implement the same level of effort from a clinical or service provision level in order to affect the behavioral health outcomes of clients who are being served. We've seen this in a couple of the applications, for example, where they want to do staff intervention, or even the one that we just finished where there was a request for some modification to the physical environment. At the end of the day, the case ought to be made in the application that this directly impacts your capacity to work with clients that increases, which increases your ability to meet the behavioral health needs. It's a logic step that has to be made. And they have to make the case that making modifications or doing staff training and support enhances their ability to reach people and to work with people in a timely fashion. And that's how I look at these. So with this particular application, what they told me was that they were working with residents and with clients who have increased stress, which everybody does under COVID. And their measure for that was the perceived stress scale, which they were going to apply and do some comparisons before and after and over time. So I had no difficulty with them using the perceived stress scale. I think that makes sense for the population that they are dealing with. My issue was that I didn't think that they stated a strong enough differential that they wanted to see in order to meet an adequate definition of progress. And that's what I sent them back for. But I, from an evaluation point of view, don't have a problem with the measure that they're using. I think your question of whether they can tie their request to their capacity to perform those clinical or behavioral health services is a separate question, and it is one that they should answer, if that helps.
Yes, it does. It does a little bit. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
So would you like me to unmute?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have D from Brookwood. D, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
please. Mhm.
Okay, could you repeat exactly what the question is?
There were actually several. I'm sorry. One of the ones that I had was just for a more explanation on the need for the capital intercom system in order to carry out services due to COVID.
Sure. You know, with the girls being able to go out, we have had some issues with having to quarantine, which we have a 4-story building. So with the staff trying to take care of all of the girls' needs, if we had the intercom system on each level, the staff would be able to, you know, assess their needs as well as provide them with the care that they needed in a more timely fashion. Not all of the girls do have cell phones. Some of them are not allowed to have them. So unless I have a staff on each floor at all times, it's really hard for the girls to, if they are not feeling well or things are going on or they need help in some way, it's hard for them to reach staff immediately.
I'm sorry, they don't have any telephones or anything in the room. Like, how would they get to you in an emergency situation pre-COVID?
Pre-COVID, they would have to either come downstairs or send someone down to get them.
Pastor Senior had a question in chat, and I'll ask on his behalf before I go into mine. Is the school district not providing computers for the students?
They do provide some. They do not work very well. Most of the computers that we are asking for or some of them are basically to be used more towards Zoom meetings with court system, as well as guardian ad litems, the foster care work, a lot of meetings that these girls have by Zoom. We do not have a lot of computers that have actual cameras and microphones, so that sometimes makes it difficult. And the computers that they get for school are only used for school.
To piggyback off of that, I've got a question too with the laptops. And was there, did you receive any quotes for the cost of laptops? It looks like there are approximately $1,500 each, and then there's also shipping involved. Are there any local stores?
That was all done by our IT guy as far as being able to be compatible with our system.
I'll add into this is, you know, I'm a tech heavy company, and tech is not as available as it has been in the past. It could be difficult to source these, and it is so much easier to maintain if they're all on the same configuration. So a local source for that many computers would be very difficult, in my opinion.
Understood.
Lisa, did you have some other questions?
I'm looking over my notes here
Oh,
just
okay.
to, I apologize. I feel like I'm the only one that had questions on this one, so I'm just making sure I've gathered my thoughts properly here.
Good.
Or,
That's good.
Madam Chair?
No, and a lot of the questions that you had, you're raising are questions that I had also.
Okay, great.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
what is the total number that's being served? Is it 110 or 100?
Lisa, do you have that? Not Lisa. I'm sorry. Who's on the phone?
D.
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 Yeah,
Yes.
I can answer that. Our estimated is 110. I know that you're seeing, we have girls coming in every month. So it's always increasing. It's usually our average is between 105 and 115 per
Okay,
year.
the reason I raised the question was that you were saying you were serving 25 each month.
Okay.
So that the 4 months.
It's approximately 25. It can increase.
Okay.
I do have one more question in regards to the purchase services, the cleaning services. There was a one-time deep cleaning and then $725 a month for the next 2 months. Has there been any cleaning services provided to date since the beginning of the pandemic, or is this on the heels of an exposure situation where the facility needs to be deep cleaned?
We had looked into it. It was too expensive for our budget. We have purchased a lot of projects, and I do have a property manager as well as an assistant property manager that have been going around and doing deep cleaning. But it would really, it takes time. And by the time you're done with doing one little section, you move to the other and you just continue to do it. We wanted to really get the entire place cleaned within one day. And that's why we were going with the cleaning company.
Thank you.
And I would just ask if it's okay, Sally, the only other thing I would want to know, and I didn't see in here, and especially if there is a property manager, we have had other organizations apply for equipment that specifically assists in this type of cleaning. And maintaining that. And if there's a property manager there that can do some of that, obtaining that type of equipment to assist might be helpful. Some of our residential programs have these, Clorox sanitizing machines that allow them to continue to do things, even though they might not have a regular service. They might have done a deep clean or something like that, but they want to be able to maintain it. I just want to throw that out there too, that it's another way to keep it going.
I'm not quite clear what you're saying, Duggan. So would you kind of restate it?
Some way, that they can continue to do the cleaning after this deep clean or when they need to, but they might have to do some type of decontamination of one particular room or a deeper cleaning of one room. But if they were equipped appropriately, they might be able to do that themselves in the future.
Right. Okay. I misunderstood what you were saying. So now I understand. Thank you. Other questions of D? Okay. Are you ready to take action? Well, we can't take any action until we have a.
I motion to approve the request for $23,893.61. Is
there a second? Carrie? Thank you, Carrie. Is there discussion? Questions? All in favor of the motion, raise your hand, please. Opposed? I didn't see anyone opposed. Okay, thank you very much. All right, moving along.
Sally, can we go back to the previous application for New Faith Free
Yes,
Methodist
please.
Church? I think that we have the representative on the line. Hoping
Okay,
that she can
good.
try to, so.
We can try. We were gonna try and get her by phone. She has not dialed in by phone. I will try to unmute her on Zoom again.
Thank you, David. If not, we can move on to the next application, Sally.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was thinking that she was
Yeah,
on the
let's-
line with the phone.
I asked her to dial in, but still no phone. So
That's not-
Gwendolyn, you can unmute yourself on Zoom and we can try one more time. Otherwise, please dial in through your phone.
Seems like she's still experiencing challenges. Sally, do you mind if we just move ahead with the
No.
last application, then we'll
Let's-
try to go back to it.
Do that.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yes, Cross and Anvil Human Services, Inc. Behavioral health. Score of 85%, requested is 68,792. Lots of comments on this one. This is good. Might take a moment to look over the comments. Do we have someone on the phone with Cross and Anvil Human
Yes.
Services? Okay, good.
I'm not sure which, there's two of them. I think they use the same link, so the same name is showing up, but I'll just unmute both of them
Leslie, Miss
when there's
Mamie
questions.
Jackson, or
Yes.
Miss Couture?
So it's,
one of the two.
okay, I'll
Or both.
unmute both because they're
Okay.
both showing up as Mamie, so.
Perfect. Yes, one is the executive director, the other is the clinical director. So both of them can absolutely
Perfect.
speak to the comments
Okay.
that you have in front of you. Just to note that their budget update has been revised, and we've been having conversations this week. And so their budget narrative has been revised, but we can absolutely go through and ask the questions specifically as you all have them laid out here too.
Okay. Well, I see need clarification for the TV purchase. So maybe that's for starters. Pretty straightforward.
That was mine.
Okay.
Could we unmute?
I was not clear. The application says the TV will be in a group room to include clients who are not comfortable in brick and mortar and allow them to participate in real time in group therapy. So is the group room in the building? I'm just confused. If they're in a group room is in the building, how will the TV benefit them?
What I took away from that comment, well, the description was that they have a group that meets, but if people aren't comfortable with going and joining the group because of COVID, it allows them to like Zoom in.
That's what I thought also. So, but they would have their own. So why is the TV due?
Because that, if they don't have a TV in where the group setting is, then they don't, I think it's to get the.
Why don't we let them answer the question?
Okay, that's a good answer.
Okay, I just want to say real quick, Gwendolyn is only listening in. She can't see that we're on another organization. I just want to let her, she did dial in on the phone. We'll come back to you. So
Yep.
just
Tell
wanted
her
to
to
announce
stand
that.
by. We're gonna
Yes.
go. Okay.
Okay, so now we have the two representatives from Cross and Anvil. You can unmute yourselves.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mamie.
Good afternoon. This is Mamie Jackson. Thank you for having me and your time for reviewing the application. As far as the television, we're going to have Zoom calls with the clients for clients that are not able to attend. Also, we have several rooms where we can have the group meetings. And that's why we are asking for the television to hold the Zoom calls on.
So if I may add, Mamie, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for your review. The television, so the group therapist is on Zoom. with those who would attend personally. Obviously, those in the room will have a sense of being in group and all of those benefits that happen there. What happens is an HDMI cord is connected to a large screen television, and you can see the faces just like you see your faces now. The people in the room will see the faces of the other group members, and so it will give a sense of real-time participation. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions?
Can I ask a question about their budget?
Yes, please do, Aaron.
Can you clarify, there's two different questions in the application. They're somewhat similar. One is the total operating expenses, which I'll list as like 296,000. And then there's the board approved budget, which is significantly less at 61,000. So I kind of wanted to understand what the current situation is. And I understand that you haven't been able to provide services from March to June. So that's probably impacted your budget.
The actual question, will you repeat that, please?
Can you explain the difference between the total operating expenses that y'all have listed at 296,000 and then the current, for the same time period, the board approved budget, which is 61,000?
Katora, could we, do you remember, I think that 296,000, that was actually, that was changed, was it not, Katura?
The budget, she's referring to the budget that Cross and Anvil submitted, that your board approved budget was listed initially at the beginning of this year, anticipating programs that you were no longer able to perform because of COVID-19. And so the lower number is a more realistic budget of where we are now, what we're operating from now.
Okay.
So
the lower one, the 61,000 is more accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe I misunderstood, but I got the impression that the 296,000 was the total church budget, out of which there is a piece for Cross and Anvil, but maybe I misunderstood it too.
Actually, that figure was an older figure for 2019 because, sorry, 2018, and that is because the actual budget had not been done yet due to because of the tax situation. They got an extension on their taxes, so that information was not readily available. So we went with the prior year, which makes it totally different now.
Okay, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I was under the same assumption you were. So the $296,216 figure is Cross and Anvil's budget and not the church's?
It's not the church's budget,
okay.
But that figure actually was a prior figure because of they had not done the taxes yet for Cross and Anvil, so it's not it had not been done at that time.
Okay.
Prior figure.
Thank you.
So that figure, that 296 figure represents a 2019 Cross and Anvil budget?
It's 2018.
2018.
Okay.
2018, okay.
Seems like a big leap from 296 down to 61. I don't know. Are we missing something here that we're not understanding, or?
There were events and funds that were, I guess, those amounts were actually events that were done during that time in 2018, which is not normally done. So they were for special events at the time.
Okay. All right. Other questions?
I've got a question related to the technology. that the organization has been providing these services since 2014. Are there currently, is there currently technology equipment in use, record keeping, printing, and or group therapy purposes?
No, there isn't. As far as the technology, we just basically have the regular internet service with maybe 1 or 2 computers for like the front desk or whatever, but no, that was not, that's only in play. We're only asking for that because of the COVID-19.
Lisa, thank you for the question. That was actually a question that I had some concerns about. And so after talking with Mamie, the executive director, along with the clinical director, that was one of the things they really helped me understand as to how during this transition, as a result of COVID, how they have completely changed their business practice, much like most of our behavioral health providers. But what was critical to what they needed were the technology pieces. And so that's why they've asked us for both the laptops and the tablets to support this request. And part of that was that they are having to do additional record keeping and printing as a result of the way that they are now, especially the clinical director, how she is interacting with clients. There is another level, I would say, of security that they're also dealing with as well to ensure they're HIPAA compliant via telecommunication.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Barbara, are you satisfied with their measurement for behavioral health? I know that's.
Yeah, I worked with them on that, and the main thing was we have always asked people to designate one measure, and they mentioned 3. So part of what I did was say, which one do you want to use, and focus on that one, and make sure that that one is articulated, and also to make sure. And some of the applications, and this was one where I thought that they needed to be a little bit more specific about the degree of change that needed to occur in order for it to be a meaningful difference. And on many of, I just feel that people are saying, well, 1 point, or as I mentioned before, or just that there's some kind of decrease. What I've really been doing is pushing people to being more specific about what they are actually going to use as a measure of progress. So when we look at the reports, we can find out if they met that target or not. It needs to be precise. It needs to be, easily identified, and it needs to match what they said in their application they were going to use. So with several of them in this batch, that's really what I've been focusing on with them, and they've been receptive to making those changes.
Okay, great. Any other questions?
No, I will just share back that the budget narrative has been gone through extensive updating with additional clarifications around the technology piece and around the pieces they need to move them forward in this work to ensure that they can fully and completely operate seamlessly in a virtual environment. There are some other requests as they think about transitioning. It is more than just doing Zoom meetings. There's some other requests that they had in there that they have been able to shore up as well.
Okay, thank you. Omar, did you have a question?
Yeah, so I was looking at over their 990, and they not only reported a deficit in their revenue, but also a deficit in their assets. And a lot of it has to do with their contractual services, much like what's in their narrative. And so I was wondering if they can explain as to what I don't want to happen is that they run out of funds too quickly. So if someone could explain kind of what's going on there, that would be great, or clarify that for me.
Okay, Mamie, can you do that?
You're referring to the negative amount for the 990?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think because of that, if you would notice, there were additional events that were going that was required or received more funds. And with those funds minus the expenses, and it's basically was kind of like a one-time thing to my understanding that we're in the negative. But we have a better hold on the program, I guess, at this time. I don't know, am I answering the question that?
Yeah, I believe you are. I guess maybe it's more so of a question for PCF. Have you worked with the organization to make sure that they can really, you know, that these contractual services, these psychologists, you know, it's budgeted accordingly throughout the span of the grant?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
And it's my understanding this is an 8-week program. It's 2 months, right?
That's correct. So we have understood very fully that the monies are for 2 months, and we have a plan of providing 8 weeks of service. We have a plan for recruiting. We have all those things in place, and we should have no problem spending the money as written in the grant.
Mm-hmm.
Mamie, are you kind of new to the organization?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So some of the questions might be a little challenging to answer from past history. Well, I think it was expressed in some of the comments that people are hoping that you can really deliver. And Jomar is right in asking the question about whether you have enough underpinnings of finances to deliver on what you say you're going to deliver, because it's sometimes more than just the CARES Act funding. It's also funding that is accessible to you. And I know that's a struggle for all organizations in this time, but for a smaller organization like yours, it really could make a difference whether you succeed or not. Okay, any other questions or comments? And are you ready to take action? Let's see, who has their microphone off? Jomar has his microphone on, I mean. So he probably was going to make a motion, right?
So I move to approve Cross and Amble Human Services for the amount of $68,792.
Okay. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I second.
Harry.
Thank you, Alithia.
No, Alithia.
Okay, is there further discussion? Questions? If there's still questions in your mind, it's time to ask them. We've got the people on hand. Okay. All in support of the motion, raise your hand, please. Is there opposition? Thank you very much, members. Carlos, are you voting? Did you raise your hand?
I think he raised his hand to vote. Did you raise your hand in favor or opposition? Could you clarify in the chat or unmute?
No, I was just raising my hand in favor.
Okay,
Great.
good.
Okay.
Thank you very much. All right, so.
We do have Gwendolyn on now.
Oh, yeah.
So let me give specific instructions. Just one second. So Gwendolyn, please press *6 now. There we go. Can you speak?
Thank you, Lord. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Yes.
Good.
Yes. We're very grateful that you're with us. Thank you for
hanging in there.
staying with us. Okay,
Thank you all for being so patient.
David, would you mind putting up that application again so that we can be looking at our.
Just 1 second.
While David's pulling that up, I would be remiss if I did not say that Ms. Gwendolyn will try to spend as much time with us as she can, but she is also a nurse. And so she is doing this in between her duties and responsibilities. So just know that. And I just want to acknowledge that. Thank you so much, Gwendolyn, for your service.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. So I think one of the major questions, and I think it was yours, Alithia, about delivery of meals, what days of the week is it? And
Yeah.
are they delivered at a fixed site, or are they delivered, around the community? How is it physically taking place? Is that your question, Alithia?
Yes, yes. Are the meals delivered on Wednesday and Saturday or Wednesday and Sunday? In one part of the application, it said Wednesday and Saturday, other Wednesday and Sunday. Are they delivered at a fixed site? And if yes, where? And if not, how do people get the food?
It's on Wednesday and Saturdays.
Okay.
And we take the food to them at the different sites.
Okay.
And we being who? Volunteers?
Volunteers, yes.
And where are those sites?
They're along, they're not specific because right now the police have been vigorously moving the little pods that they meet in. And it's anywhere down from the US 19 or 34th Street corridor, from 22nd Avenue to 38th Avenue North, 22nd Avenue South to 38th Avenue North, down to Williams Park, up through Central, the PSTA, Wildwood. It's all over the city. It's like in a 40-mile radius. And it varies depending on, the weather sometimes, if it's raining. But it generally happens between 1 and 4 p.m.
So you're going where the people are, is what you're trying to say.
We are going where the people are, yes. Yes.
You might consider yourself a movable feast, something like that.
Could be.
Is that helpful to you, Alithia?
Yes.
And somebody, and maybe it was you too, Alithia, asked about the use of the Scout volunteers. So are the Scouts?
The use of the Scouts, New Faith Free Methodist Church is their sponsoring organization of 16 boys. And basically, during the summer, it was more of a ride-along, help with distribution as part of their community service. Some parents do give us donations of products or sometimes even money. Mm-hmm. But with COVID, it's really gone down because we have just started again to meet as of 2 weeks ago, and it's very limited contact. We're down to twice a month versus four every week. So
you're down to twice a month that you use the kids, the Scouts? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and we're just now starting to meet, actually. We haven't even done a community service project since the summer because of COVID. Actually, having the kids ride along and help distribution and packing and all that stuff. We haven't used them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there was a little concern, and maybe this is part of your question, Sherry. I mean, a question to you, Sherry, about the mileage, and maybe not enough money is set aside for mileage as they deliver the food.
Sure. So I will leave that open for Gwen to respond to how it is that they came up with the exact number of miles per week. And I think it's a fair question to ask. Does that reflect actively and accurately all those that you were seeing through the program?
Yes, I'm a driver. Several of the church members are drivers, and that's about approximately, I did it, used the AAA rate first in the first grant application. And as you requested, I used the IRS, I guess, rating system, and we were $3 different. So I think that's accurate.
So Gwen, I guess the question is, is it just one individual that's driving up about 40 miles a week? Because now you mentioned others.
No.
So should that?
There's others.
Okay, so should that amount be increased then from the 40 miles, or are you all doing 40 miles total? How does that number kind of
40
figure
miles.
in?
40 miles total.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thanks for the clarity.
I think somebody else, let's see. Somebody else had something.
There was a question about budget to project expense and warrants some discussion.
Oh, yeah.
So Who asked that question?
Somebody asked about the supplies as far as the freezer went. The first narrative I wrote up was for a new freezer. I was asked to get another alternative, if possible. Give the cheapest alternative, and I went to a couple of rental places. I went to Facebook Marketplace, used freezers, and that figure was the lesser. It was, maybe that's why the numbers appear to be off. I used the lesser figure of $965 as the alternate figure instead of giving that $1,751 freezer.
Okay.
Thank you, Gwen. I appreciate her utilizing the advice that was provided to go with the least expensive option. And so that's exactly what she did. So those numbers, as I mentioned previously, are reflected in the updated budget narrative that you all, I'm happy to send it out to you all.
Okay. Yeah, that would be helpful. So are there any other questions of Gwendolyn?
So
go ahead.
Joe, go ahead.
So I just had a question about the projection. So how can you guarantee these numbers? Because it already sounds like your volunteerism sort of teetered off and then came back. And so what I'm anticipating is it's going to teeter off again during the holidays because people are just going to be at home.
As far as volunteers numbers?
Yeah.
Oh, we have them. Our church, it's sponsored mostly by the church. And we're just in a holding pattern right now. We fulfilled 80 meals yesterday just with donations from personal donations because we feed on Wednesdays. But we have the people in place and ready to go if we receive this grant to triple the amount of meals that we serve.
I think Joe Meyer's question, just to elaborate a little, is do you have the manpower to deliver the meals?
Oh, yeah.
Sounds like that.
We've got the volunteers. We have the volunteers.
Okay. I shouldn't have used the word manpower. Woman power,
Yeah.
Like Gwendolyn.
Yeah, it's men and women.
Human power.
Right. Okay, other questions?
I had one question, Sally.
Sure. Yes,
part of the proposal talks about helping people who are low income or who have suffered job or income loss. And part of it talks about feeding the homeless. When you all work to feed the homeless, are you also finding ways to connect them to other programs? Our community has a good deal of rapid rehousing money and other services available. So I just want to make sure a good connection is made.
Yes, we just got some flyers and we attached those to the meals. A lot of our volunteers, they don't work for, but I guess they volunteer for a couple of services that are, the mental health services, the housing services. And we just dimmed up a little flyer with that information on it. Mental health, housing for veterans, that sort of thing for them to connect with.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gwendolyn. Okay, any other questions of the committee members? Are you ready to take action?
I move approval.
Thank you, Alithia.
I'll second.
Aaron seconding. Further questions? All in favor, raise your hand, please. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you,
I would
Gwendolyn.
like
Appreciate
to
you
note
being-
for the minutes that Pastor Seniors dropped off, and so he was not part of that vote.
Correct. And thank you, Gwendolyn, for your being persistent to connect with us, because it was helpful to have you on board. Okay, so have we got any other, that's all our grants, right? Committee grant requests, okay. So I would just kind of wrap it up. And I think that the staff is working with people hand over fist who are wanting to make application and need to refine it and have some technical assistance and so on. I've already heard from others who have, they just don't have it right yet. And the staff has been wonderful. So thank you, staff, for being helpful to them, because it's not the easiest application and things change all the time. And we want to be sure that we're doing it right. But we want to be sure that we get the money out as soon as possible too. Cherie, do you have anything that you want to say?
No, I don't. Thank you all so much for having additions. Duncan, do you have anything else?
Duncan?
No, I don't at this time.
Okay.
I can't thank people enough for the time you spend to review these, the questions that you ask. It makes us have a better process. There are agencies who watch these videos to try and strengthen their own proposals or know what they're going to be encountering. So I think that it's wonderful. And then I guess the only other thing I forget, because the day is, here we are at 2:20 in the afternoon, but I hope people got an opportunity, if you did, to join us for our media event this morning. We were joined by 8 media outlets and also about 200 guests this morning to help people understand what's going on with mental health and the investments we've been able to make for mental health. And there are already 2 press stories and more coming out about that to help people understand where to go get help and how these dollars are being put to action in the community. So that was great news today. It
was a wonderful webinar, press conference, information. And Duggan, you might mention, how do people access the information? Because everyone in this committee might be interested in being involved in it in some way, or know someone that might be involved.
Right. And so one thing that you can do, David put the Facebook link to today's press event in case you weren't able to make it. And then one of the big things that was featured today was mental health first aid. And we had 2 testimonies about the value of mental health first aid, including someone who was trained and has put that into action in their workplace and speaks very highly of it. That is an 8-hour course. I think with the virtual, it's 2 hours of self-study and 6 hours of virtual. And so directions right now, if you're interested in mental health first aid, David put the email in there. Email your information to info@directionsforliving.org. And as soon as they solidify their schedules of trainings, you will be able to, they'll be able to tell you that schedule and you'll be able to participate. And again, this was funded through this grant program with the goal to train 3,000 people before the end of the year in mental health first aid. And so a small army of people who, just like we train people for CPR and first aid response to provide adequate assistance until the big help can arrive, that's the idea behind mental health first aid. And so if you're interested in availing yourself of the training, the email is info@directionsforliving.org.
And Duggan, if I might add, they're including law enforcement, which is no small need at the present moment. So I was really pleased to hear that.
Yes, and part of that also is the acknowledgement from law enforcement itself that we are having a significant increase in mental health issues in the community. They're being called upon, they're responding to these incidents. And so part of this is to help our law enforcement in those cases as well. And then also to help first responders, law enforcement included in that, in working on their own mental health challenges in this pandemic, in this time. And so it's great that assistance is being provided. And I'm pleased that the leadership for law enforcement here is recognizing the need and the value of handling mental health issues within their own.
And I was pleased to hear on the press conference that you're working with school directions, and we, as a part of it, are working with schools and teachers and youth, and kind of a whole range of people that will all be touched by mental health issues. So it's good stuff. And last week we did approve Directions for Living with a very generous grant, and so this is really playing it out. And I appreciate the Pinellas Community Foundation being a partner on this, because you've been able to take the lead on something that sometimes people shy away from, and ours is is being very upfront and very direct about all of us could use help. And so I loved it, and it was really worthwhile. Okay, I was going to thank you for that. That was going to be my close, but hey, you took it away from me, Duggan, so there you go. Anyway, thank you all once again. We meet again in 2 weeks. I hope you're all here and as prepared as you always are. I really do appreciate all the work that you do in advance, because it's not just showing up for a 2-hour meeting. It's maybe for me, it's spending my Sunday afternoon. I come home from church and I, get on the computer and work on it. I don't know how you all work on it, but anyway, you do it the best you can at the time you can, and you've all come well prepared. So thank you so much. And for today, I'll call this meeting adjourned about 2:25. Thank you again.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.